Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm so glad that you came back to Lamb Network for another one of my World Within a World shows tonight. I hope you're safe wherever you are. I know we're going through tumultuous times as a nation, and there's just a lot to think about and absorb, and I just pray that you're safe. So with that said, I just want to remind you to relax and enjoy our time together because the future begins now. I always like to start every program with that as my sort of my mantra. So we always know we can move forward. So yes, thank you. I'm glad you're here. If you're new to the program, actually, let me show you my contact information just in case. And as you know, I have a ring light. Yes, you can see it in my glasses. I try not to let you see that ring light because I find it annoying, but sometimes it can't be helped because I like to use notes. But this is my contact information. As you can see, my website is newcovenantpath.com, and my email is drrobingould@gmail.com. You can reach out to me there, or you can go on the live chat tonight. I was like that. I'll pull that chat up in a minute. I'm actually out of office until June 30th, but we'll be returning messages then. So anyway, just wanted to welcome you and to get us rolling in tonight's topic, which is actually our third series in what we are talking about, which is comparison. So let me actually start. Let me move my notes here. And let's start with a scripture and go from there. So let me stop my screen for 1 minute here. And I just want to pull up a scripture here. And you know I have allergies. Okay, we've already established that with my last week's Kleenex gate. But anyway, let's get reading our scripture. I just want to start with this, and this will be the basis from which we will kind of launch our discussion. So we have Matthew 20:1 through 16. So let's read this together. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and send them to his vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace, and they were doing nothing. And he told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around, and he asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first." The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came, and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "These who were hired last worked only 1 hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered to one of them, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." Okay, so there we go. Let's stop screen. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Parable. So I really love the whole idea of parables speak to us and can be very helpful. And this story, I love this story so much because it really touches on our humanity and the Father's divinity. And it teaches us how these two things can connect to some degree. We are not God. And that's one of the themes that I talk about all the time. We are not God. And we should know that. And we should always live our lives understanding we're humans and he's God. And this is one of those stories, one of these parables, where we can really get in touch with the fact that his ways are higher than our ways, and we benefit from that. This is a good thing. This is a very good thing. And so this teaching is called Comparison. Don't be for sale. Do not be for sale. And for sale can mean a whole bunch of different things, and we'll touch on that throughout our hour together, which always just seems to go by so fast and so quickly. But here you have the kingdom of heaven, which is like this landowner in the vineyard. And so you have people working a long day, and they had agreed this is all I want is, a day. That was a day's fair wages, actually. A little A is a footnote where you could read that. I'll work for a fair day's wages. And then, of course, there's an evangelistic idea, the metaphor here, where, we went out, the landowner went out and found, the foreman came out and found people that were not employed and were standing there. And it was better that they would be working, that they would be invited in. And so they would go in. And at the end of the day, of course, some people had worked an hour, some people had worked a day, and they all got paid the same. And then it was this challenge in their humanity, like, why are you grumbling? This is my money, my land. You have been brought in all day to be a part of my vineyard and to be a part of every bit of fruit that comes from it. And then you're grumbling because these other people, now they had less to do with the fruit, but they got paid the same, right? So from my perspective, this really underscores this whole idea of the Father loving everybody the same, loving every person, no matter who they are, no matter what they do, no matter how long they do it, he loves everyone. And in the world of comparison, and this is just one example, how we can compare ourselves to other people. We can compare their gifts and skills, their opportunities versus our opportunities, their talents, their family, their blessings, their curses, even their problems, just their health. I mean, our health, whatever. We can compare, and we can do that all day long. And in many cases, we all do. And this parable is extremely interesting because the kingdom includes our humanity being corrected and fortified by his divinity. And we can remember that. We have a very capable landowner that we work, and he's fair, and he's with us, and he provides us a place to be and not stand around and do nothing. I think that's a very comforting thing, but that's not always the way that everybody views that. But let's look at comparison, and then let's look at different types of comparisons, because we talked about Miriam, and we talked about how she compared herself to a former self, or a former her, a younger her, where she had a more instrumental role in Moses' life. So you can go back last week if you want and watch. That was part 2 last week. And so you might want to go to the week before and catch up on that. I also have a podcast, and I think this one's called, I want to say it's God is Trending on Twitter. That's what it's called. And the gist of that is basically, as all kinds of things were erupting in strange, bizarre, pandemic ways in our country, in our world, our entire world, that there was a lot of people despising the fact that all of a sudden people are turning to the Father, like, you didn't care about him before, and now that you're scared, you care. And my podcast was sort of a rebuke to that attitude, like, absolutely don't despise anybody turning to the Father. Because when you think about, and in that podcast, I actually mixed up a name by mistake, but when you think about Joseph, right? When Joseph and Judah loved the Father more than they hated each other, then you found restoration, right? You found that family together. The most important thing was the Father's joy, the Father getting the prodigal son even, right? Yes, you have been with me, older son, and younger son went out and forfeited all the blessings. But he's coming back, and I'm happy to see him because I thought he was dead, but he's not. So revel in my joy rather than in what your comparison is of what you did. And so that takes us out of comparison and out of ourselves and other people. And that's important, right? That's a really important thing. So today, that's basically the main scripture that I'm reading today. And this won't be as meaty as some of the other ones were, because I wanted to talk a little bit and kind of just have a little bit more of a discussion. Actually, let me turn the chat on just in case I get anybody coming in. I'm just, like I said, I'm still, okay. I hope this is, I don't know, it's comments or chat. I don't know which one I need to, someone type something. If I don't see it, I'll know that how will I not know? Okay, well, let's, I'll just see if I can hear comments or see comments, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, so first of all, let's talk about, let me actually go to let me share a screen for a minute here. All right, so this is the title, Comparison, Do Not Be for Sale. We sell ourselves and we sell other people to an opinion, right? This sort of idea that we have a clipboard that we've been equipped with to do an evaluation of ourselves and others. And I would really encourage us all not to think that way. I know it's destructive, and it's not the plan. It is not the plan. And so when we look at comparison, I'm going to read you some quotes. We're going to talk about kind of the different elements of comparison and how that impacts us in our culture. So I am in the United States right now, and my culture is what I am used to. I know there's other cultures that don't do this nearly as much. I think a lot of cultures do, but I can speak only from my culture that I am familiar with. But comparison, let me read you a couple quotes. Let's enjoy these quotes together. I picked my favorites. Okay, so who cannot like Mark Twain? Comparison is the death of joy. And I certainly don't feel like that is any stretch, because you could just be having a great day. Actually, I saw this one time. Let me stop the screen here. I remember seeing this one time. I was with some friends, and I was with a woman, and she had worked really hard and lost some weight, and had been really worried about her health, and really was excited that she had really worked so hard and had lost this weight, and we were all together, and she was so proud of, the discipline that she had, been able to operate in. And of course, we loved her no matter what, but we were glad for her health and proud that she was so proud, and we just loved her. And we went out for dinner, and we were sitting next to another group of women, and the women, were all like svelte model-like women. And you could just see her sort of deflate. Like, this excited, exuberant woman was great and wonderful in the safe context of her friends who celebrated with her. But out in the world, you could see that had affected her, which was sad to us, because there was nothing that changed about her appearance or her health in that moment. We were all just enjoying time together. But something that she compared herself to actually affected how she viewed herself. And so it's a lesson, right? It's a very good lesson. And this is all to encourage you not to do this, not a rebuke on this. If this is a struggle for you, this is a encouragement, an invitation into a safer way of living, into a better way of living. That is not a good way of living. It's in comparison to other people. So let's keep looking here. I'm going to apologize for that light. And I'm going to look at my chat here. I don't see. Okay. So I might not just have anyone talking, and that might be all that's going on here. Okay. So one of the things to remember with comparing ourselves, first of all, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've been doing this for a very long time. And I've had a lot of different types of people that I've treated and worked with, and I worked in different agencies and different companies, and done different, worked in schools, done occupational therapy. I've done, autism work. I mean, just working with families with special needs. children, worked in adoption, worked in the court system. I mean, I've just done a lot of marriage work, family work, systems and structural work. And it's always amazing to me the way people don't understand that what you see on the outside of somebody's life is never, and I don't mean just usually not, I'm going to say 99.9% not what happens behind closed doors. Trust me when I tell you this. People can have, Instagram is a curation process where we curate our lives for public consumption. Okay, that's not everybody is doing that. There are people who use social media as a means to reach out and be transparent, connect with other people, and really are wanting to reach out. And I would count myself as one of those people, and I would say that my friends, you know, the people I'm close to. But a lot of Instagram, a lot of, particularly Instagram, but Facebook or whatever, it's a show. And so you can look at a person's page or Instagram or whatever that is, and you'll see this major post, these pictures. And I wish I could explain to you how frustrating it can be to see people, beautiful, amazing people, curating their lives because they don't think they're enough the way they are. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to purposely go on Facebook and post the most unflattering picture I have of myself. I mean, you know, we're all going to be, oh, I love this picture. You know, I love this beach. I love whatever. I'm going to post this. But I just wanted to throw that out there to remember. Just remember what I'm telling you. You probably know this, but I know it more in my field of work, because people come in, they're so pulled together, and they have this and they have that. And then you really get to talking to people and they are struggling. They're struggling with things you wouldn't even imagine that they are struggling with. And that isn't to cheer you up like, oh, we're all, you know, that's great. I'm so glad they're suffering. There is an element, though, that when we share suffering, right, we are together and there is a bond. Our goal isn't to watch people suffer. Our goal is to know people are suffering. And we are suffering, right? People go through difficult things. Some people have more external struggles than other people. But generally, I'm finding that it's really never behind the door what it looks like on the wreath, right? The wreath on the door. Just something to remember. So I want to go through a few more quotes. Actually, let me read. You know what? I'm going to read you a quote that I love. It's so simple. But if you've ever read Everyday Holiness, this is a book I am so in love with, and I've read it 1,000 times. It's the Musar, if you've ever heard of that. It's the Jewish spiritual path. So it's Jewish ethics, actually. And this is by Alan Moranis, and it's a really great book, and I just can't even tout it enough. But here's a nice look at this. I want to. It's this little parable, and I really like it because, well, let me read it to you because it leads into comparison. Because here I am talking about how people are suffering, right, in this world, and we are. And I'm suffering, and you're suffering, and everyone I know is suffering in some way, shape, or form at some point of in our lives. And some people, maybe all our lives. It's the human condition. It's what it's like to toil for your bread, right? And to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. There are just a lot of things that we deal with. But when I want to start with comparison, where we talk about where Mark Twain says, comparison is the death of joy. Okay, let me read this and let's see how you can connect with this. Ready? And I quote, "Once Rabbi Akiva was walking along the way, accompanied by a rooster, a donkey, and a lamb. He came to a certain place and looked for room at the inn, but he was turned away. Then what happened, he said, whatever the All-Merciful does, he does for the good. So he went with his rooster, donkey, and lamb and spent the night in an open field. The wind came and put out the lamp. A weasel came and ate the rooster. A lion came and ate the donkey. He said, "Whatever the All-Merciful does, he does for the good." On that very night, a marauding troop came into that town and took into captivity everyone in that town. Rabbi Akiva was spared. Had his rooster crowed, had the donkey brayed, had the light glowed, he would have been discovered. So the message is clear. How can we evaluate what is happening right now when we don't know what will happen next? Hello, Tova Ratson. Oh, so nice. So there's a nice parable of we don't know what's going to happen next. So we can't compare this moment with any future moment because we don't know what lies in the future. We don't know if it's better that we don't have this expensive, huge house or this car or this education from this particular university or this particular life partner. We don't know, right? We know now. All we know is like what I wanted my friend to know at dinner. You are you now, and you're every bit as worthy and beautiful as you ever will be because you are so valuable, made in the image of God. And so as we compare even our moments, we start losing now, we start losing being present, we start losing our gratitude, right? We start losing gratitude. That's a Musar principle. They talk about soul traits. I really recommend that book. And actually, we'll probably be visiting that book more than you can imagine because there's so much. It's a treasure trove, really, of great things. But let's look at a few more. Let's just keep going. I love this kind of free flow talking. Like, I actually think this is helpful. So let me see here. I'm going to say, let's just let me find the next thing I want to do. I want to give you another quote. Okay. Let's share the screen. All right. Let's look at this quote. Betty Jamie Chung. Comparison with myself brings improvement. Comparison with others brings discontent. Right? So let's unpack that a little bit. Comparison with myself. Okay, so there is this principle of being on a journey of improvement in our lives, right? Character improvement, humility improvement, gratitude improvement, all the traits, all the soul traits in Musar, right? They kind of take you through each one and you get an idea of different angles to look at these traits and what obstacles hinder us from acquiring them. And our goals should always be that we are acquiring more humility, that we are walking more like Yeshua. We're walking in the peace and the clarity that he brings. So when we compare ourselves with ourselves, it's not to shame ourselves or to rise up above others. We're talking about not like Miriam, I used to be so important and now I'm not. No, this is a journey of, I lacked humility when I was 18. I lacked honesty. And I've learned over the last whatever number of years to be more honest. I have learned that humility is a blessing and feels great when your mind and your heart are working together with that moral compass set to the Word of God. So that's comparison, where you have measurable change of where you have journeyed. All right. But if we're comparing ourselves to others, we won't be as grateful for the transformation the Father's done in us. We won't really appreciate ourselves as much because we might look at another person and say, I've only written 5 books. This person's written 55 books. That doesn't change the number of books I've written. It just changes the way I feel about it as I read about this person that wrote 55 books. You cannot do that. You cannot extract yourself from the meaning and destiny of you. Now, if you can look at the person who wrote 55 books and it's your journey and destiny to be a writer, you can be encouraged and ask them, how are you able to stay so focused to write 55 books? You know, I would like to see what I'm supposed to do. I would like to see how far I'm supposed to go. You're not going to do that by comparing yourself to that person. That will never happen. That won't help you. And actually, I thought I had another quote in here. If I do, let me look. Let me look here. I always have to put the rings in your face there. But there's an ancient Proverbs I just wanted to share. Who is rich? He who rejoices in his own lot. So if you ever saw, like, there's different movies where one called Shallow Hal, where it's how you would view something that would determine your enjoyment of it. It's kind of a movie maybe not everybody would enjoy or like, but I thought it was interesting because as a therapist, you're always looking for ways to connect, particularly with people just in the mainstream, not necessarily in religious systems, and to help them understand concepts. And that's one of them. That is one of the ways that I like to explain to people that your value is very much your perspective. And you ever meet people who don't compare themselves to other people? Those people that I know, like, stand out to me. They're so original. They're so authentic. And I'm like a magnet to those people. I really admire those people and feel, and you know what? If you're a person who struggles with comparison, I'm a magnet to you in a different way and love you. So anyway, let me look. So I got all these people kind of coming in. And, oh, I love this. Look at this. So I have Tova Ratson. To compare is to despair. I always tell people, oh, well said. And there you are. Oh, look, Nitsa went to Israel. Her, and thank you so much. You guys are so great. I own that movie. I love that. I was a little afraid that I mentioned it. But yeah, people totally pull a Shallow Hal all the time. Yeah. So you know exactly what I'm saying. Look at Hamza Seg. Look at you. This is so nice. Thank you for chatting. I feel so good that you're reaching out to me, and I'll keep looking. I have to remember to look sometimes at it. Now, where was I? Okay. So let's do a couple more quotes here and see what oh, and look at, now people know each other. We love Nitsa. So yeah, well, who doesn't, right? We love her. Okay. I want to do another quote here. Okay. Now, this is an Emerson quote. I don't know if you're a fan of his, but I am. And, you know, some people might not really like quotes from more secular people, but I think people have wisdom and we can learn from anybody. But here's a great quote. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I have seen people go into self-improvement modes where they start realizing that self-improvement isn't even really the word. You are just right. Perception improvement, character improvement. Yourself is all set. Your true self. Your true self is in the garden, always, still, right? That's the actual perception. You're important. Your true self is real. It's the false self that does the comparing, right? The false self. And we talk about that in psychology. We call it the false self. And I think it's important that we continue to keep our focus on trying to identify where false selves rise up and start comparing with, and even on the other hand of comparison, thinking we're better than people, not just that they have a better life, but that we do. And you know what? The guy with the rooster and the lamp, you know, we might go, oh, that's awful. That person, they must have been sinning. They have a horrible life. They have a terrible life. But a lot of the times, the things that happen to us that are the hardest end up being the best. But who is it for us to say about other people? I know I'm kind of all over the place today, but I'm practicing this new stream of thought talking because I hear a lot of people, I get different feedback about the show. They're like, what I really love is this deep, meaty scripture. And then I get these people say, yeah, you know, that's okay, but I really just like when we talk about things, you know, when we just talk. So I'm trying to give everybody a little of everything, and I'm going to hone this and we'll figure out. But I do like the quotes. And let's see, let me look. let me take another one here. Another quote. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, let me share a screen on this one because this is a deep one and I like it. Okay, you ready? Oscar Wilde. Most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions. Their lives a mimicry. Their passions a quotation. Right? So they're not in their true self. They've curated their lives to fit an image of what would make them appealing to other people. That's not living your life abundantly, is it? Here's another one that I like. Oh, Anne Morrow Lindbergh is another one I love. The most exhausting thing in life is being insincere. Is that not a lot of work? You know, if you're not telling the truth, you have to concentrate on your lies. When you're telling the truth, you just know the answers, right? That's the same thing in our lives, right? When we are always having to posture and be a certain thing, it is extremely exhausting. And it robs other people of what we have to offer. And it robs us of that other person's response to our truth and to who we are. Does that encourage you? Do I sound too much like a therapist? I probably do. That's okay. Okay. Comparison can turn friends into adversaries. Well said, Frank. And I think we've all seen that quite a bit. We've all seen times where we've been jealous, right? So these people that were in the vineyard, you know, for all we know, they were palling around and very good friends while they worked in the vineyard. And everything was lovely until they compared their wages with their timestamp, you know, work hours. When that comparison happened, it's like, wait a minute, you've not gotten what you deserve. And I get to decide what you deserve because I know everything. I know what's fair. I know what's just. What's that? The false self, the judge, right? This is what I get to do. I get to be God. I get to make this choice. It's not our vineyard. No, it isn't. Okay, let's look at another one here. I love these. This is my favorite one. I was going to say this for last, but I guess I got carried away. Don't compare the size of your roof with the size of the sky. Think about that one for a second. What do you think about that? You are equipped with gifts, talents, people, resources to propel you to each stair that you are to take in life, right? I believe that firmly. Now, whether or not we always take that hand that we're handed to walk, that's up for grabs. We don't always do that. Sometimes we linger back in fear and self-loathing and jealousy and comparison and materialism and all these other things that hold us back and that we let hold us back. But don't compare the size of your roof with the size of the sky. You don't have to be everything. I'm going to tell you something. Scrolling on Facebook or let's say Instagram. I say Instagram because it's so many more photos and not as much politics really. I don't know. I'm not on what I'm seeing. But do you ever you're just going through and you're like, oh my gosh, that person has like the best arrangement of fresh flowers I've ever seen. And look at that person's sofa. And they're beautiful. Like they're in Montana and look at the gorgeous scenery and they're fishing. And oh my gosh, that person's baby is so adorable. And you just keep going down and you're just flooded with these images. You're just flooded. You're flooded. You know, I'm all for technology in certain ways, as long as I have one of my sons to direct me through it. But do you think it's natural? And, you know, technology is a part of our reality. So on some level, there's some natural aspect to it because it exists. But is it kind of unnatural to just scroll through like hundreds of images and ideas and thoughts in like a minute and just try to form an opinion on that and not kind of take that in? When a lot is given, a lot is required. When you want to look at a lot of images, you better have some wisdom to not really let that in because this is their best day. They're presenting you with their best day, their best arrangement of flowers, the best table they ever set for themselves, the best meal they ever cooked. It's very cheesy and shiny. It's all of these things. And you're just like scrolling down, or just like Facebook can be so overwhelming. You're just looking through and it's like, well, that's a terrifying image. And wow, that's really sad. And that's happening. Oh, that's wonderful. They had a birthday, and like, oh, she had a baby. Oh, this person, their adoption fell through. Oh my goodness, look at that person's bleeding internally. I mean, you're getting this like enormous spectrum of emotion and pictures. It's very hard to understand who we are against a backdrop of scrolling information. I honestly don't believe that that's natural. So forgive yourself if you're struggling with who you are for a second, when you're trying to wonder, like, how successful are all these people? Like, they have the best friends ever. They have more friends than me. They have the best porch. Like, my mother has the best view, gorgeous Lake Champlain view. I don't look at that and say, I should have that. Well, I kind of have it because that's my mom, so I can go anytime I want. But what do I want to do? I want to elevate her joy with that lake. But if I don't know, that's my mother. If I don't know her, there's probably a chance I might look and be like, oh, that's where you live? I wish I lived there. So is that normal? But what does that do? It robs you of the joy of the view you have, which might be of your adorable child, or your beautiful spouse, or your peaceful opportunity of stillness. Who knows what you have? I don't know. Do you know? You won't know if you're comparing it to everything that you're seeing from a curated, image-controlled machine that's pumping you with comparisons. So we have to change our perspective of social media. We're not going to look at social media to compare ourselves, or to even put that clipboard down. We're not even evaluating it. And I actually can't go on Facebook for more than a few minutes at a time, because it's just too much for me. Not even because I'm going to compare myself, but because it's just too much range of emotion and needy issues, and just too much. And other people, they could scroll for hours. I know people that are on Facebook all day and they're like, it doesn't even bother me. Well, I have not reached that place yet. But don't compare the size of your roof with the size of the sky. And I feel like Instagram, Facebook, these things are the sky, right? They're the sky. They're every single person's best moments, their highlight reel, as you might hear. Anyway, just something to think about as we just kind of go with our stream of consciousness here. And got all these cool people coming on, and that's so nice. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here. That's a little bit too going to take us in the reeds. Let me just keep going. Okay, you ready? Let's do this one. I like this one. Okay. No one's life ever goes as they planned. That truth alone should bring a sense of relief to everyone. I love that. I certainly have not lived a life that has gone the way that I planned. I will admit that to you with no shame. Many things that I have planned have fallen through. Many things I have not planned have come to fruition. And things I've planned have worked. And I tend to be a tenacious person, and I will find a lot of success if I put my mind to things. And sometimes that can really be my worst enemy, because you could really become addicted to, getting something done, or doing something that's helped people. And if you've ever heard the term communal narcissism, I don't have it, but I will say that there's a highlight reel, and you can look up that term, communal narcissism. It's I do good and I have authority in that. Don't be, don't be too tricked by that pony. Don't be too tricked by that pony. If people have their big, social media reel of all the good they're doing. I'm not saying it's bad to post when you're doing philanthropy and helping people and finding joy in it. But just remember, not everything is as it seems. So it doesn't mean we want to have a jaded idea and look at people that way. But it's always to keep in the back of our mind that we can't compare anything about us with other people. It's an extremely important thing. So if you think about your children, if you're sitting with you, like let's say I'm sitting with my son and I ask him how his day is. And I'm going to touch on prayer here. So I want to ask my son, how is your day? And if he answered me and said, well, Jimmy, his parents' house burned down. So does it matter how my day was? Well, I'm your mother. I want to know about your day. I'm sorry for Jimmy's house. And how is he? Okay. And his parents? Anything I could do I could bring over a meal? Okay. How do you feel about that? Are you okay? Your friend's house burned down? Like, are you all right? So how was your day? Like, what did you do today? What happened? As a parent, I'm not looking to say, actually, I don't care about your day at all because Jimmy's house burned down. Well, we can be like that even with God. I'm not going to pray about wanting, to be able to get to go to Greece on my honeymoon, my 25th anniversary, when other people like don't even have a peach to eat and they're just striving to dig through a dumpster. Like, that's using your prayer life as a mechanism to compare yourself to other people. And it's interrupting a true and authentic conversation that you want to have with the Father. That's not fair to either of you. You're depriving the Father of what he wants, which is you in your truth. You're depriving yourself of just having that conversation. So picture yourself with your parent and not wanting to tell them anything about you and your wants, desires, fears, or whatever, just because other people have it worse or better. Right? Doesn't that make sense? From an attachment lens, it makes sense to me, because this is a relationship that we have with God. This is a relationship that should be true and authentic and sincere. So things aren't going to go as planned. You're going to be surprised, and bring that to the Father. This was not the plan. There are really some very wonderful prayers that people have prayed that don't seem like prayers you would ever want to pray, or you would think, but the honesty in the prayer is I think beautiful. I've had people, confess to me, I, was angry with God. I was angry with myself. I was angry with everybody. I struggled. And I just felt like it was just too menial to bring up. Well, you're not going to transform on your own. It might seem menial to you, but who are you to judge what's menial? Your life is big and important. And it is a life that the Father gave you. And he wants to share in it. He wants to watch you and walk with you as you experience it. So don't deny him that by comparing your experiences to another person's experience. So my prayers are going to be different from a person in a third world country that is starving. I'm going to have a different life. I have a different calling. I have a different role. I have a different pasture to impact. Everybody has a pasture to impact. So our needs are going to vary based on those things. But if we poison ourselves with comparison, everybody loses, because the person you're comparing with, if I'm not wanting to pray about a particular relationship that might be a challenge and I'm trying to work this out because someone's starving in a third world country, that person's not going to get any food because I didn't pray about this relationship issue, right? It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't. And actually, you know what? I want to find something and I want to show you, because I think this is interesting. Let me look here. Okay. Actually, it was the next one. I'm in tune with myself. Okay. I want to show you this because this is one of the most teachable things that has ever happened to me. Okay. Ready? Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. One of my most teachable moments of how to live occurred as my flight to Vermont started out for the layover city. The captain, the pilot, he took the speaker, and they usually give you their information about the flight and the conditions, and he closed by saying, "So sit back and relax and enjoy the flight, or sit up and be nervous. It's your call. Either way, you're getting to Chicago." And I remember just like that moment of like, you know what? I am going to get to Chicago no matter what, whether I'm nervous or whether I'm upset or if I'm enjoying an apple juice. I'm on a plane, the door's shut, I'm hurling through space. So it's going to be up to me. And how does that relate to comparison? Comparing your moments, comparing your future, comparing your past, deciding how you're going to walk because you feel like you have control over it. We have control over our character. We have control over our responses to things to some degree. There is always going to be trauma, right, that we sustain in our lives, which the Father, I believe, is very merciful, very merciful. He gets your trauma. He gets you. He knows you, right? So, it's not when the Father says to have no fear, it's not this mean commandment, like you're such a loser if you're afraid. He's comforting you and saying, don't be afraid. A lot of people really twist that into some like horrible rebuke of like, you obviously are a weak loser. When really, I believe he's saying, I've got this. And you're walking through a scary world. You're walking through scary things. And don't compare your lot with your neighbor's. They have their thing too. And also, if your neighbor's going through something, do what you can do to help. But you don't need to judge whether they're having an unfair situation either. It really is difficult. Trust is a difficult thing. To trust that we're enough, to trust others are enough, and to trust that the Father's got this. If you really think about it, comparison, this is the third in the series, and this is more of the open stream of thought, just kind of going through quotes and talking about some elements of comparison. We could do this for weeks. I won't, because it's way less organized than I like to do my presentations. But I thought it would be valuable to operate outside of what I'm used to and not compare this to how I usually do it. I thought that would be a good exercise for me as we navigate through. So before we go through some quotes, there's my love, Barbara Tipping. Oh, I love her so much. She's such a good friend. And look at all these people. Oh, Tova Ratson. I choose I choose joy. I choose happy. I choose love. I choose to look for the collateral beauty instead of the collateral damage. That is beautiful. Wow. See, I could read that on Facebook all day. You keep posting that and I keep reading that. And that doesn't mean we just need fair weather friends that have all of the inspirational stuff to say. But what an affirmation of what we can look at and what we can see about ourselves and about other people. And that Jewish expression about the Father looks at your strengths with the weak eye and your weaknesses, or no, the weaknesses with the weak eye and your strengths with the strong eye. Thankfully, right? I'm glad, because I certainly need that mercy and that grace in my own life. And that's important. Let's talk about our, let's see. So we have a comparison with our future life, right? We have a life comparison of what our future could be and how happy we could be when. Oh, and this is a common one, right? I'll be happy when I've lost this amount of weight. I'll be happy when I live in this house. I'll be happy after I've traveled, after I've gotten married, after I've gotten divorced, after whatever. Comparing the moments and robbing yourself of now, robbing yourself of what you have and what you can look at. And I hope you don't feel like I'm being harsh. I'm trying not to be. I'm trying to encourage you to step out of comparison and be engaged in your life. Be engaged in today. And it's hard because a lot of times we are in a hallway. We are in hallways as we transition from one thing to the other. So look around that hallway a little bit and see, are there pictures on the wall, or what does it feel like to be in this hallway? And relish that experience, because there's something about that experience that will benefit you. It's equipping you for something. Hallways are tricky rooms, right? They're odd shapes. They connect rooms that might be different colors. It's very true. A lot of times we store things in the hallway to keep it out of the way. Hallways, yeah. So I'm in a hallway right now in my life. So that's a good message for me. Okay, so we talked about the false self. Let me share the screen again. And let's talk about this quote. Okay, ready? We all wear masks, and the time comes when we cannot remove them without removing some of our own skin. Well said, Andre. Okay, stop the screen. Now, what do you think about that? Yeah, we can be fake long enough. We can try to earn our love. We can try to people please. We can try to self-sacrifice or be the judge or the controller or the entertainer or the performer so long we don't even know anymore that this is all an act. And that's where we get into what we call an existential crisis, right? Who am I? What am I? Why am I? And that is a very hard place to be. However, when you find yourself hitting that wall, celebrate. That means you've hit that wall. What is there to be afraid of? You can figure out, wow, I'm going to rip the skin. So what do? Father, take your balm and put it between this mask and my skin. And let's just peel it. You do it. Hands are down. You just take it off. That's a big moment. That's a lot of the work that I do, is helping people to identify safety so that they can do that. It's the best thing you can do with your friends, and model that for your friends. That and call your friends out in a good, healthy, safe way. That, I've had friends do it, friends that I care about and that have cared enough to me to say, you know what, can you stop with the jokes right now? I want to know you. And I know that's a way that you cover up, something that's wrong. But what's going on? And you know what? Those are the friends that know me and help me. And I help them. And I really love this sort of reciprocal thing. And it doesn't mean, my friends and I, just because I work in the mental health field and some of my friends do, that we're always having these like very in-depth, serious conversations. But when we see each other operating in ways that are insincere, comparative, that's a reduced life, right? That's a minimized life. You're just basically reducing yourself down to what you can perceive is a comparative measure to somebody else. I'm tired saying that sentence. I actually wish I could edit it out because it's such a painful sentence. But we don't need to live that way. We shouldn't live that way. If you are living that way, find help. Get friends. Talk to your friends. Find one person that you can trust. Trusted others is something that if you have even one person like that, count yourself blessed. It is a gift, a huge gift. Let's go to another quote. I loved assembling these because I felt like, okay, here's one of my favorites. You ready for this? All right. You are you now. Isn't that pleasant? Dr. Seuss. I don't know. Dr. Seuss can really help me out. I think that's a very beautiful way to, let's see how much time we have because we are almost done. So, well, let me cover a couple notes. Let's see. Let me look here and read one more thing. Okay, I'm going to close on this. So, Dr. Seuss, you are you. Now, isn't that pleasant? To me, that's a goal statement, that you can say that and mean it. Now, of course, there's a lot of Bible scriptures that you can find and say that and mean it. But I'm saying this was just such a simple, well-known context. I felt like it was a great one to bring here. You are you. Now, isn't that pleasant? If you can say that, and you can believe that, that mask is gone. And it doesn't mean that mask doesn't fly in your face a little more here and there, like pieces of it anyway. I think we'll always struggle through that in our lives. And I think that's the walking out our salvation with fear and trembling. I honestly do believe that. But the idea of not comparing is one of the things that I think is beautifully inherent in the Sabbath. And before I bring up the Sabbath, let me just see. Oh, threshold decisions. That's so right. 12 rats and yes. That's another whole, that actually should be the name of a whole entire teaching. So the Sabbath. On the Sabbath, one of the things that I love is when there's a uniformity in observance. So some people get really upset about that. They're like, oh, that's legalism and we shouldn't be, all doing the same things because the gospel manifests differently in our lives. And I'm not certainly saying anything about people having, their own expression in many ways of how God works in their life and the way that they share the gospel to others. Right? People are different. People like different things. Some people hate certain things that other people use as tools, witnessing tools. I mean, there's just going to be a range there. But just hear me out here. One of the beauties of the Sabbath being universally or uniformly observed, where there would be oversight as to in our community, here is how we observe the Sabbath. There's a couple reasons. Number one is it completely withdraws the idea of comparison, right? There's no so here's an example I always use with people. If you have, let's say you have a community, say there's 15 families, and the community agrees that we won't watch television on the Sabbath. We do that all the other 6 days. And we monitor and make sure we watch good programming. But on the Sabbath, since that's something we do every 6 days for the other 6 days, we want to have a different Sabbath. And I'm talking about, people, especially people new to the Sabbath, with a traditional oversight of Sabbath, TV wouldn't even be on the radar. But I'm just using this as an example. So you have these 15 families and they don't watch television. Now, if one family goes rogue and they decide I'm going to watch, we will watch television. We don't judge anybody else who, won't watch television. If they want to adhere to the group, that's fine, but we want to. And then you've got the little neighbor and they're like, oh, the little 9-year-old's like, I want to watch TV on the Sabbath. It's very relaxing. And they're watching TV. What does this breed? Comparison. Those parents are nicer than my parents. Comparison, just right there. Your Sabbath is ruined. Uniformity in this way for communal observance is a gift. You don't have to make all these decisions because the decision was made for you and you're submitting for the greater interpretation for the group. So if that helps anybody here who's struggled with anything like Jewish, or they can feel like that's something they don't feel like is great, I want to just kind of dispel some of those myths about what communal observance is supposed to do. It's supposed to enhance your joy. It's supposed to even out the community and, in a practical sense, monitor and trim the fat of all the decisions that we have to make all the time. So for 6 days, you can scheme and make decisions and labor over all the ideas. And on one day, all the decisions are made for you and you just rest in it. That's actually a blessing. And the principle of withdrawal in general is a blessing. Because when you pull back from the world on the 7th day and you haven't had 7 straight days of the world, it doesn't become your habit. Then you're consciously and cognitively entering into and re-entering into things by choice because you've had a chance to get away from it. You've had a chance to get away from commerce. You've had a chance to get away from television, to get away from programming, from scheming, ideas, business, work, all these things. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing that we can not be in a state of comparison. And the Sabbath is a day to not be comparing. So I always encourage people, like at the Oneg, don't bring food that's so impressive if it's going to make you compare yourself to other people, or you feel like it's going to be divisive in your group. I know that sounds really hard because it's like, well, you should bring the best food for the people that you love. Well, yes, and that should be the reason, right? But it shouldn't be just a way to slip that mask of comparison in on the Sabbath. It sneaks in. It does. It really, really does. And I'm a big famous one for it, to be honest. I've done that myself. I would bring like this amazing salad with all of these beautiful organic lettuces and all the different colored vegetables that I would layer and make in this gorgeous salad. And I would just be like, oh, this is so healthy and so good, and no one else brings salad, so I'm gonna be the salad bringer. And then like nobody would have any salad. And I would be like, I'm the one that brought the healthy food. What is it? Am I in the Sabbath? No, I'm comparing. My efforts aren't being appreciated. I'm comparing. They ate all the macaroni and cheese, but they're not eating my salad. So you see, I went into comparison. Was I good enough? I don't think people really see how great that was, right? Maybe even feeling a little superior. I brought the healthy thing. Yeah. So comparison, it bleeds in outside the lines and it bleeds into the sides in little ways. And so when you see, what we talked about with Miriam, right? We talked about how she compared her current self with her former self and felt like she was lacking when she was just where she needed to be, following Moses in his chapter of leadership. She had hers and she fulfilled it well. And the Father was so pleased with her. But when she wanted to dominate, then the Father set her apart to restore her. That was very important. So I think that comparison to the former self, you aren't going to be 21 again. You're not going to have 21-year-old skin. You're not going to, live where you used to live and have the same friends in the cul-de-sac you used to have. What do you have now, though? Comparison is the thief of joy. It's the thief of now. It's the thief of the future even. It can bring a lot of hopelessness to us. And we miss out on the true eyes that we're given to notice things when we're always in a state of comparison. So my personality type is very future focused. So I struggle with this one quite a bit. This is what's next. This is what's next. It's very hard for me to be now. I mean, I'm one of those people that like to make a memory and reminisce about it forever and then have a future plan and talk about it and plan it. But when I'm having the moment, I have to actually force myself to enjoy the moment or be in the moment. And I don't know if you're like that. That's part of my cognitive functions and the way that I work. And some people are the absolute opposite. And, if I were to compare myself to them, I would be very unhappy. Yes, I need to work on future focused and not default to my cognitive traits. I don't want to default to them. I want to operate within them in a kingdom building fashion and in a healthy fashion. But there are other people that are so not future oriented. It's so hard. Sometimes it's like so hard for me to understand. Like they're not looking for what could go wrong or what the potential could be for this opportunity that they might miss or not miss. And I look at them and they're so relaxed and I'm like, how are you so relaxed? Like things are happening and all around us. And why aren't you focused? If I compared their cognitive functions with mine, I'm actually missing the gift that they bring, right? Because they're so calm. It's like the most calm thing ever. And when you're around people like that, it's amazing. I actually can't even tell you how calming that can be if you let it be. Now, you could look at that person if you're like me. Now, if you're like me, raise your hand, okay? You're aware and focused and what's next, But when you're around the calm person, and what if you could actually say, wow, they're bringing me down like this. That's where I needed to be. Or maybe your gifts are in operation and they need to find another gear because you can't just be loosey-goosey about everything, right? There are just different types of people. I'm not going to compare myself and find myself lacking, but I might find that they're going to be a helpful element of my day, right? They're going to be a helpful element of my day. And so the sort of the example I would say was like if you're on a plane. I don't know if you're a good or a bad flyer. I used to be a bad flyer. Now I'm a great flyer. After flying like 5 airplanes a week for 2 years, you start to not care anymore. But when I was a bad flyer, I remember I used to always watch the flight attendants. If they were like nervous, I was nervous. If they were calm, I was calm. So the calm ones really helped me, right? But I wouldn't want to open up the cockpit door and see like snoozing pilots, right? I want to see them, right? So there's always a time and there's always a place. But comparison. So I'm not going to look at people and say, they're so calm. I'm so future focused. I'm lacking. I'm wrong. They're right. Or the opposite. I'm on top of things. They're obviously not on top of things. That is not healthy. That is not helpful. And that's not embracing the skills and gifts of other people and what they bring. And so, yeah, so this was kind of an interesting hour. I wonder how you feel about it. Please let me know, and don't be shy, because one strength I have is I can handle criticism if you feel like you aren't resonating with this free stream. And I was going to do that again someday, not next time, but I wanted to try it to see how you felt about it. Because sometimes you can just kind of get into a thought and then it leads to another thought, and I'm not rigidly set to a PowerPoint or whatever, but normally I like to organize my thoughts and present them to you in an organized fashion. Some people just don't really love that as much, and some people really love that. And I admire teachers that teach with, like, I can't even, it's amazing to me, like people that teach without all these notes and PowerPoint prompts like I usually use, because I feel like I'm going to miss some major points and get off on some rabbit trails if I don't have that. And some people, they are just so on point. See what I just did there? Compared myself to another person. Is there anything wrong with me using organizational prompts? Absolutely not. But can I appreciate people who don't need them? Yes. So just an example of comparison and how this seeps into our lives and how this is a part of our lives and how we can acknowledge it in our own lives and help other people to acknowledge it in their lives, but not as a judge and not as a surveyor of all of their weaknesses, but as an encourager. When you see your friends or people you love or family members, and they are operating in a mask, right? They're operating in in a fault way. When you see that, we're going to close here. We're over time. When you see that, here is what you do. And this is what you do. You say to your friend, I enjoy spending time with you. I care about you. And if you are feeling uncomfortable, take a deep breath, because I'm here with you. You would be surprised. I have done this with friends. Friends have done this with me. Relax. Take a breath and help people to see they're safe to be them. That's probably the best gift of friendship that you can ever give, is to be present and have gratitude for who they are. But to do that, you have to have it for yourself first. So that would be my takeaway for today. Like Dr. Seuss says, you are you. Now, isn't that pleasant? Not, isn't that superior and better than others? Or isn't that a bummer because other people are better? No. So there we go. We've talked about comparison from a lot of different angles. And I have really enjoyed all of you in the chatting. That really, really, really helps me. Now, what I'm doing is, as I'm closing, I'm looking at my sheet of how to end this thing, because I'm still not, I'm not comparing myself, but I am still not technologically perfect. So what I do is I click on this thing, and I'm going to be ready for what I have to do next. See, that is how this thing works. Okay. So that way I can say goodbye in a way that doesn't feel as abrupt. So yeah, see that technology and me, we're getting there. I'm learning. So thank you for your time being here on LAM Network. Contact me if you have any questions or comments or ideas for shows. I am so open to that. And I would actually really like to cover topics that you find interesting and exciting. Or I've written Becky books, BEKY books are available on Amazon. Go look at them. If you want me to teach on a book or whatever, just let me know. But newcovenantpath.com is my website. You can go find me there. And I have a lot of podcasts, and I have some where I'm defending books. So they're kind of aggressive defense of a book. And then I've got softer podcasts for, more of a relaxing experience. So go through and see what works for you. But anyway, so I just wanted to thank you for everything and the time that you spent chatting with me. That actually really means a lot to me. I hope you enjoy this, and we will resume next week and see what we will learn, because the future begins now.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.